a slide. All of you have followed this. This is Indian media since 15th August. Honestly, when I look at it, it feels like Delhi has fallen. I don't know what is going on. The left picture is the US F-15 flying over Wales with the caption, Pakistani jets over Panjshir. News alert, Indian mainstream media, debunked by the UK Defense Journal, not by me. Next to it, there is a video game, the 3 gameplay footage or whatever, with the claim that Pakistan has bombed Afghanistan, with a senior former Indian general putting a tweet out saying the Pakistani National Security Advisor is lying, look at the Pakistani plane. This is from a video game in 2016. And then we have put out a dossier 2 days ago on the human rights violations and atrocities in illegally occupied Kashmir. I know all of you are here focused on Afghanistan, but it would be a disservice if I didn't at least spend 5 minutes explaining to you what is happening, and again requesting you not to look at this as divorced from what is happening in the region. All this is a conflict that is connected in terms of where India wants to take it, and let me explain to you why. Next slide. The dossier, I want to be clear, was put out because of this gentleman, Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, probably the staunchest and most upright of leaders that this region has seen, I would say, standing on his conviction, died, and a 90-plus-year-old man's burial was not allowed. The body was snatched. He was wrapped in a Pakistani flag by his family. There were charges brought upon them and FIRs registered by the police for doing that. This is a country that says everything is under control in Kashmir, all is settled, democracy is back. A 90-plus-year-old man's dead body was too much for them to allow their families to have the last rites. I hear a lot about human rights. Please do keep this in mind. India, I saw somewhere, I showed you, diversionary tactic by Pakistan. Let me be clear. We want the entire world focused on Afghanistan, remain focused on Afghanistan. We don't want anybody to take their eye off the ball. We don't want anybody to wash their hands clean, because we want Afghanistan to be stable, and it will only happen through international assistance. So this idea that we want to change the conversation is mind-boggling. Next. This dossier we have here, we will give it to you. There is a CD, there is a barcode, you can open, look at it, and do whatever you like with it, and challenge us if there's a single source that you think is not reliable. There are testimonies of 1,700 plus victims since 2014 included in the dossier. Please look at it and tell me where else in this Pakistan-India context you can come up with this. Next. Here are the mass graves since 1990, 8,652, some of them having up to 17 bodies, unearthed not by me, but by the sources and the reports that are at the bottom left, which you can read in the dossier yourself. Next. These are the ways they're tortured. Please look at Western law and tell me which ones of these anybody is willing to live with. Electrocution, burnings, rolling over, which frankly I had to ask my team what that really means, and I don't want to go there. I don't think I can bear it. Cut and slit bodies, all of these verified with sources. Okay, this is important. Sorry, this is graphic. We've taken out videos that are in your CD. Watch it advisedly. Chemical weapons, you know, are outlawed globally. India is a signatory. We are not here to say this is what they used or that is what they used. All we are saying is all these pictures match up with use of chemical weapons. There need to be international investigations whether this happened or not. At the very least, get the watchdogs to go and see what has happened. Don't prove me right or hear it from me. At least let somebody go and see that these human beings were humans, had families, and have gone through what I'm showing you here. One can hardly bear to see it. This is not a political statement in any way. Don't use the word Pakistan. Just go and see if this is true. And if it is, international laws must be invoked. There's a lot said about pellet guns and the use of pellet guns. It hasn't reached a global convention stage, but if you look at all international law experts, all opinions, even the OIC's Independent Human Rights Commission commissioned a study, I know, that this is inhumane in terms of its use. Kids as young as 2 years of age have suffered pellet gun wounds or have died in the process. Countless. This is not one, this is not two. It has been a weapon of choice. 120 killed, 15,000 plus injured. And then this is another very interesting, depressing phenomena, where everybody in the world talks about, India and the use, and all of that is fine. We are not, it's for all countries to decide what relationship they want to have with any other country. But the fact that people don't accept that from the very top, this is being directed. I've just shown you in the last dossier we put out, in the Prime Minister's office is a cell where in the initial tranche, $500 million were put to undermine CPEC. This is another example from their own words, not ours, their own words on what they're saying about the government. This is an Indian Army officer talking about punishment and torture. So many villages here, so many people here, burnt, killed, whatever. Why? Because Modi ji has said, go ahead and kill any Kashmiri you can. And then just towards the end, cluster munitions, another thing that you can go and look at international law and see what they say. Ample evidence, Indian origin, clearly being used in the illegally occupied territory. So just to bring it to where all of this connects with Afghanistan, why I've put this out. These are coordinates of training camps which are linked to ISIS. When the attack, mother of all bombs or whatever, was dropped on ISIS, you had Indian nationals who died in that. This is the news or the story or whatever that came out. Why am I putting this here? And this is where I want to link this to the conversation. Contrary to what the Indian media, which I've shown you the amount of truth that they're speaking these days, that Pakistan is diverting. Pakistan wants the attention focused on Afghanistan, but Pakistan has never taken attention off IOJK. And this dossier is a tribute to Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani. There's no question about that. But what you are also hearing now very dangerously in India is, Afghanistan, something's happened. Now, this may create trouble in Kashmir. What that linkage is, I don't know. What I do know is that there is a set pattern in Indian narrative. Anytime they get stuck in Kashmir, anytime they think that the world's focus is on them, the conversation about terrorism begins with one link or the other. You end up with violence, some attack somewhere, and suddenly there is a conversation about, oh my God, terrorism in Kashmir. Why? So that the conversation shifts away from human rights violations, from the movement that is in Kashmir to terrorism. And I'm sorry to say that the world essentially lumps it up, believes it again, and moves away from the real problem, which is the 10 slides I've shown you before this. If the world is going to do that again, I can assure you that India will feel emboldened to create this bogey again and create instability in this region. If anybody has any doubts, please check these. The coordinates are there. No country would put out this kind of detail if we didn't know what was happening. This is an interesting tunnel. One almost wants to go and see where this is and what magic it has. It's called the Samba Tunnel, where every time this diversionary narrative is created by India, 2012, 14, 16, 17, 18, 20, in Indian media, if not officially, this Samba Tunnel is mentioned, or there are terrorists coming from this tunnel. What I want to ask is, if there is a tunnel that you know of for 9 years, why haven't you bothered and gone and closed down the tunnel? I mean, it's mind-boggling. Somebody is cutting, copying and pasting in a document the same name, the same tunnel for 9 years. And nobody is willing to question this. The other thing I'll tell you is, mark the figure 300. Repeatedly you will find 300 terrorists have come. 300 terrorists have come. So if you've got to create a conspiracy theory, a lie, at least make it logical. And here we are, I'm showing you something. For 9 years, the same tunnel. Just to put out how they are dealing with this. Final slide. Very provocative. True to the core. If Pakistan is not going to warn the world, we will be doing a disservice. I'm not going to go into the detail. You have this slide in front of you. All of you are familiar with the history of Europe in the 1930s. Let me just say very plainly. Today it has been proven that what we were saying in Afghanistan was correct. The world was not looking at the real side of this story in terms of internal failures, in terms of the narrative created through Indian support by governments in Kabul. Today, I'm saying again and again, and we've said this before, you have got an identical trajectory, an identical mindset, an absolute similarity between the 1930s of Nazi Germany and what is happening in the Hindutva India. I am not at all pointing a finger at India, the people. All I am telling you is, we look at the behavior, look at the policies, look at the decisions. We will regret it if parochial economic and tactical and security interests continue to mask the reality of what is happening. And I'm not only talking about internal. Internal is internal, but I must point out that this region is being destabilized. For 20 years, Afghanistan has been destabilized by, quote unquote, the force for good. If we would have been heard, the story would have been different. Today, I hope the world hears, I'm not passing any judgment. Go and look for yourself and compare. As a neighbor, Pakistan has the right to worry, and Pakistan has the right to raise this. From the concept of superiority, you can read the manifesto yourself, to the idea of persecution of Muslims and minorities, the idea of Hindu Rashtra and expansionism. By the way, they think that everything to the Afghan border on the west should be India. What is happening with intellectuals in India, the Delhi pogrom, where Muslims and minorities were killed, and compare it to the 30s there. Corona and typhus. If anybody knows of what happened with the typhus pandemic and how it was blamed on the Jews, and look at the commentary about export of corona from Pakistan, corona and Muslims, and connected to love jihad and all of that, and on and on. The point is, if the world wants to close their eyes, it's going to be at all of our collective failure and at our peril. Let me leave this here. Just end by saying, we're seeing two nodes of concern here. One is Afghanistan, and we have constantly repeated, the world must look ahead now. There is, learn the lessons anybody wants to learn, that's always needed. Now, let's not make the mistakes of the past just for political expediency. Let's make sure we do the right thing for the average Afghan. We engage to ensure that Afghanistan doesn't collapse, the average Afghan doesn't fall into a humanitarian crisis, and counterterrorism and economic goals are met. Mind you, let me also say, I'm saying this is Pakistan's national interest. If anybody in the world thinks that this is not directly in the interest of the international community, they're living in fool's paradise. Neither mass migration nor terrorism respects borders, we know that. So it's a collective responsibility. And second, what is happening on our eastern border, the kind of fake news that was put out, and now I've just shown you what they're saying about Pakistan, verifiably wrong. You will hear more. The word Kashmir and terrorism linked to it. Know what is happening and know where this may end up. So we hope that the world understands where we are coming from. We are not here to plead for anybody or to gain sympathy. Very clearly telling you where this region's interest lies from our perspective. And Pakistan has been a partner, is willing to be a partner going forward. Any and every conversation in the space that we've mentioned, but we will partner transparently, we will do what we say, and we will partner within the ambit of the legal international law and legal domain.